If you're a basshead, then both the Sony XB900Ns and the new Skullcandy Crusher Evos are great options to choose from. But these headphones are very different from one another, and I like to think the Sonys are better suited for the logical and responsible basshead, whereas the Crusher Evos are better suited for the I don't care, give me all you've got basshead. So if you're a basshead and you're trying to choose between either of these two headphones, let's see which one's right for you. Now, when it comes to price, these headphones are fairly similar to one another. The Crusher Evos have a retail price of $200, which I think isn't too bad, whereas the Sonys have a retail price of $250. But these headphones can routinely be found on sale for $178. And basshead or not, these are still one of my favorite pair of mid-tier ANC headphones to recommend, period. But nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these headphones up, they'll be linked down below. Now, first off, let's talk about cases. Both of these headphones come included with carrying pouches, so if you do plan on traveling a lot with either of these headphones, I do recommend that you invest in a hard shell case. But regardless, the Crusher Evos come included with a much more durable pouch than the Sonys. The outside is thicker, the inside is lined with thicker fake fur, and there are even dedicated pockets for your cables. And in general, Skullcandy has always really knocked it out the park when it came to carrying pouches. Now, when it comes to the headphones themselves, both of these headphones have good build quality. They're both fully collapsible, they both have a good click to them when you extend their headband, and they both have zero cracking or squeaking whenever you handle them or flex them. But when it comes to their materials, the Sonys have a mostly textured plastic body. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a mostly plastic body, but the Crusher Evos do feel way more premium when you've got them in your hands. The majority of the body of the Evos has a soft touch feel to it, the top of their headband has a hit of Alcantara, underneath the headband there's padded silicone, and when we get to the ear pads, the Crusher Evos have way better feeling leatherette than the Sonys. The leatherette on the Evos feels much smoother and supple, and there's even a slight grain to it, which is nice. Whereas the leatherette on the XB900Ns feels decent, but it just doesn't feel as luxurious as the leatherette on the Evos. So when it comes to build quality, the Crusher Evos feel way more premium than the Sony XB900N. Now, when it comes to fit, that's a whole other story. Plainly said, the XB900Ns are way more comfortable than the Crusher Evos for multiple reasons. First off, when it comes to clamping force, even though both of these headphones are big head approved, the Sonys have way less clamping force than the Evos. The Sonys have a loose fit, whereas the Evos have a firmer fit. And when it comes to weight, since the Sonys weigh in at 254 grams, they're much easier to forget that you have on. Whereas the Evos weigh in at a hefty 310 grams, so you never forget that you have these headphones on and you really notice them when you're walking around with them on. And when it comes to the padding on these headphones, the Sonys have much better padding as well. First off, since the Sonys have a good amount of soft padding underneath their headband, this headband doesn't create a hot spot on the top of your head, which is super important for long use sessions. Whereas since the silicone padding on the Evos is much stiffer, this headband does like to create a hot spot on the top of your head at the 1 hour mark. I can muscle through it, but the 1.5 hour mark is when I start to either shift this headband back and forth, or I'll take these headphones off and take a 5-minute break. And when it comes to the ear pads on the Sonys are way more spacious than the ear pads on the Evos. The ear pads on the Evos are very cramped, even for my average sized ears, whereas the Sonys should be able to fit most people just fine. So overall, if you're looking for a pair of headphones to wear for hours and hours on end, the Sonys are the obvious choice here. They have less clamping force, they're much lighter, making them easier to forget that you have on. Their headband doesn't create a hot spot on the top of your head, and their ear pads are much roomier. Whereas the Evos are really only good for like an hour-long listening session. Now, when it comes to tech specs, both of these headphones charge via a USB-C port as they should. And when it comes to battery life, the Evos have an advertised battery life of 40 hours, whereas the Sonys have an advertised battery life of 30 hours with their ANC turned on. But keep in mind, you can always stretch out the battery life on these headphones if you use them with their ANC or ambient mode turned off. And also keep in mind, the battery life on the Evos really is dependent on how you use them. More bass means less battery life, and less bass means more battery life. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, both of these headphones can only be connected to one device at a time. So if you're a power user, you're not going to be able to hot swap with either of these headphones. Now, ultimately, it's not a huge deal if your headphones have simultaneous multi-device connectivity, but it is nice to have. But more importantly, when it comes to watching movies or videos on your phone, both of these headphones have zero latency across the board, whether you're using an iPhone or an Edge device, which is always great. But when it comes to audio codecs, the Evos only have support for SBC and AAC, whereas the Sonys have support for SBC, AAC, aptX, and aptX HD. And they also have support for LDAC, which is Sony's own high-res audio codec. Now, if you're an iPhone user, this doesn't really matter because iPhones top out at AAC anyways. And like we've seen with Sony's newer ANC headphones, like the 1000XM4s or Huron 3s, Sony is currently phasing out aptX support in favor of LDAC. But still, if you want to, you can still use a wired connection with either of these headphones because both of these headphones still have an easy-to-reach 3.5mm audio jack. But now let's talk about listening to music with these headphones. Even though both of these headphones are basshead headphones, these headphones sound and perform very differently from one another. Now, the Sonys have a fully customizable EQ, so you can make them sound however you want. And you can have different preset EQ settings for different listening situations. But I know what you're really wondering about here is the bass. Now, the XB900Ns have way more head-rattling bass than your average pair of headphones. And like I've mentioned in the past, having the clear bass slider on the 1000XM4 set to 10 is like having the bass on the XB900N set to 4. With the XB900Ns, you are definitely going to feel the bass in your music. But bass isn't everything. With the XB900Ns, you're also going to get the better instrument separation and the better clarity here. Now, I'll admit, having all of the extra bass on the Sonys is a lot of fun. But having a lot of bass can get old after a while. So with the Sonys, if you want to switch it up and go for a neutral EQ for a while, you can do that. And like I just said, you're also going to enjoy the better clarity and better instrument separation here. Whereas with the Crusher Evos, these headphones are all about bass. Plainly said, the bass on the XB900N just doesn't come anywhere near the Evos. The XB900N will rattle your head, but the Evos are going to rattle your head so much that your teeth are going to chatter to the point where they'll might chip a tooth. Alright, okay, that's a little exaggerated, but the bass on these headphones is insane. Now, the bass on the Evos is tight and well managed. It doesn't roll off like the original Crushers, and it doesn't muddy up your music, which is good. The bass on the Evos is more like getting punched by your headphones because this bass is actually very precise. Now, the Evos have your standard 40mm drivers just like the XB900N, but what makes the Evos special is that they have a separate pair of drivers that put out the bass on these headphones, essentially acting as vibration motors. Now, basically, these headphones are all bass and vocals because the instrument separation and soundstage on these headphones isn't the best. But quite honestly, you're not really going to care because the bass on these headphones is just overwhelming and distracting. And besides, you're here for the bass. And in that case, the bass on the Evos will over-deliver. So overall, when it comes to sound quality, the Sony XB900Ns are far more versatile than the Crusher Evos because they have more than enough head-rattling bass to satiate your average user. But thanks to their fully customizable EQ, they can also be used for different listening situations, or if your tastes change, then the Sonys can keep up. Whereas the Crusher Evos are a one-trick pony. These headphones are all about bass, and they have way more and much more dramatic bass than the Sonys. Now, even though the Evos are a one-trick pony, they're an insane amount of fun. With the Evos, you can't help but grin when you're using these headphones. Now, even though, yeah, these headphones do have a few preset EQ settings to choose from, and they have personalized audio, personally, I would still prefer if these headphones just had a fully customizable EQ that I can control, like the Sonys. Now, like I mentioned in the Crusher Evo's full review, even though these headphones are a tremendous amount of pure dumb fun, these headphones are better suited as a pair of secondary headphones. Since the Evos just aren't as comfortable to wear as the Sonys, they aren't great for long use sessions or for commuting, and the Evos are also missing active noise cancellation. Now, granted, the Sonys don't block out a tremendous amount of noise, but at least it is something. But so that you can see for yourself, we're gonna jump into an ANC test. So obviously, the 1000 XM4s block out way more noise than the XB900Ns, that's a given. But I do want to point out, like I've mentioned in the past, the entry-level Sony XB900N actually managed to block out a little more noise than the XB900N. Now, I didn't include them in this ANC test for time, but given that the XB900Ns are the oldest headphones in Sony's current headphone lineup as of late 2020, their ANC isn't as effective as newer ANC headphones, because the XB900Ns came out in the summer of 2019. Regardless, the ANC on the XB900Ns is still good because it doesn't have any cabin pressure, which is important for comfort, and it doesn't change how your music sounds. So even though the ANC on the XB900Ns isn't as effective as newer 2020 ANC headphones, the ANC on the XB900N is still useful, and it's a feature the Evos just don't have. Now, another feature the Evos don't have is an ambient mode, whereas the Sonys do. And the ambient mode on these headphones is really good. It sounds very natural with zero hissing in the background. You can adjust how much noise these headphones let in, and this microphone array does a really good job of blocking out wind noise when walking outdoors. Now, I'm fully aware that the Evo's bigger brother, the Crusher ENCs, also have an ambient mode, but I'm not a fan of their ambient mode because this ambient mode has a constant hissing in the background, which is distracting, and their microphone array really likes to pick up a lot of wind noise when walking outdoors. But also, the Sonys have quick attention, where if you fully cover their touchpad, they'll lower the volume of your music and pump in all of the ambient sound around you, like this. Myself for trusting lies. I know I can't. And then when you let go, the headphones will go back to normal again. Now, I do feel quick attention has a lot of room for improvement, but it's there. But something the Crusher Evos do have over the Sonys is that they have tile support. Now personally, I would prefer if these headphones had ANC and or an ambient mode, but tile support can always come in handy if you lose your backpack on campus or while you're commuting. You're at least going to be able to track down your stuff. And finally, here's the microphone test. Now, the microphone on either of these headphones isn't the best, but I do feel that the microphone on the Sonys is better than the microphone on the Evos. Now, neither of these microphones do all that great of a job of blocking out ambient noise, because with both of these headphones, you can clearly hear that AC unit in the background. But with the Sony XB900Ns, my voice does sound a little more natural because this microphone doesn't have so much amplification going on. Because with the Evos, there is a considerable amount of amplification going on, and there's also a noticeable amount of white noise in the background. So with all that being said, like I said at the top of this video, both of these headphones are great bass headphones, but these headphones are very different from one another. The Sony XB900Ns are the logical and responsible choice here. These headphones are way more comfortable than the Evos, so you can wear them for hours on end without any problems. And they have active noise cancellation and an ambient mode, making them far more versatile for different situations. And when it comes to their sound, if you want to feel the music, then the bass on these headphones definitely has you covered. But thanks to their fully customizable EQ, you can have them set for different listening situations, or if your tastes change, then these headphones can't keep up. And besides, from a performance standpoint, these headphones have far better clarity and instrument separation. The Sony XB900Ns are not just a great pair of bass headphones, they can easily serve as your daily drivers. So these are the better long-term investment here. Whereas with the Skullcandy Crusher Evos, these are better suited as a pair of secondary headphones. These headphones aren't the most comfortable, and since they lack active noise cancellation or an ambient mode, they aren't the best for commuting. And they also aren't the best sounding. But the bass on these headphones is truly insane, and is just pure dumb fun. Quite honestly, when you listen to music with these headphones, you can't help but grin from ear to ear. And also, there's the fact that these headphones do feel much more premium in your hands because of their soft touch body, Alcantara and silicone underneath their headband, and their better feeling leatherette. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any other products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.